Welcome. Good to see everybody. And I hope everybody is holding up well under La Corona and our quarantini, which looks like it's going to go on for a little bit longer. And so we are again betwixt and between. And so I would like to open this morning with a blessing from John O'Donohue for the interim time. When near the end of day, life has drained out of light, and it is too soon for the mind of night to have darkened things. No place looks like itself. Loss of outline makes everything look strangely in between, unsure of what has been or what might come. In this wan light, even trees seem groundless. In a while it will be night, but nothing here seems to believe the relief of the dark. You are in this time of the interim when everything seems withheld. The path you took to get here has washed out. The way forward is still concealed from you. The old is not old enough to have died away, and the new is still too young to be born. You cannot lay claim to anything in this place of dusk. Your eyes are blurred, and there is no mirror. Everyone else has lost sight of your heart, and you can see nowhere to put your trust. You know you have to make your own way through. As far as you can, hold your confidence. Do not allow your confusion to squander this call, which is loosening your roots in false ground, that you might come free from all you have outgrown. What is being transfigured here is your mind, and it is difficult and slow to become new. The more faithfully you can endure here, the more refined your heart will become for your arrival in the new dawn. And so if you will grab your candle or your chalice or whatever you happen to have handy, that'll light a little flame. And join me in the words of lighting our chalice. We light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In the search for truth, may we be just. In the search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. So this is a real service. It's not virtual. We are connected electronically through the internet. But this is a real service. And we are real wherever we are, sitting in our living rooms, our offices, our back porches, wherever we are. And so we're not together in one space, but this is real. And so I invite you now into a time of meditation, reflection. And I ask you, as you're willing and able, close your eyes. Relax into whatever chair or whatever you're sitting in or on. Take a deep breath or two. And as you relax into your chair, I'd like you to feel the pull of gravity. Feel the earth pulling you down, connecting you. And into this space, I would like to offer you another poem from Rilke. How surely gravity's law, strong as an ocean current, takes hold of even the strongest thing and pulls it toward the heart of the world. Each thing, each stone, blossom, child is held in place. And only we, in our arrogance, push out beyond what we belong to for some empty freedom. If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise up rooted like trees. Instead, we entangle ourselves in knots of our own making and struggle, lonely and confused. And so, like children, we begin again to learn from the things because they are in God's heart. They have never left him. This is what the things can teach us: to fall patiently, to trust our heaviness. Even a bird has to do that before he can fly. And I invite you back now into the present moment. I'd like to open my homily today with some words from Robert Bly, from a prose poem of his. Sometimes farm granaries become especially beautiful when all the oats or wheat are gone and the wind has swept the rough floor clean. Standing inside, we see around us, coming in through the cracks between shrunken wallboards, bands or strips of sunlight. So in a poem about imprisonment, one sees a little light. But how many birds have died trapped in these granaries? The bird, seeing freedom in the light, flutters up the walls and falls back again and again. The way out is where the rats enter and leave, but the rat's hole is low to the floor. Writers, be careful then by showing the sunlight on the walls, not to promise the anxious and panicky blackbirds a way out. And I say to the reader, beware. Readers who love poems of light may sit hunched in the corner with nothing in their gizzards for 4 days, light failing, the eyes glazed. They may end as a mound of feathers and a skull on the open boardwood floor. We'll come back to this little piece here shortly. But I want to begin with a question. How many days and months has it been now? How many days and months that this new virus has rearranged our lives? Not so long in real time, very subjective, very long and subjective time, where the days blur into one another. I have trouble keeping track on a daily basis. The old signposts have fallen, and the clock chimes new hours without rhyme or reason. But what is not in doubt is that our lives are not what they once were, and that they will never be the same again. Now, opinions are divided on whether this is a good thing or not. Spend just a little time on the internet, and you'll find posts revealing that the virus was bred in a lab in order to usher in a new age of surveillance and tyranny. There are posts and articles and pundits proclaiming that the virus is here. It's a teacher or a guide or a lesson sent by God or the devil or Mother Earth or the Democrats or the Republicans. Most troubling to me personally are the ones where the writer likens our current predicament to a collective vision quest or a collective rite of passage or a threshold into some new maturity, some new phase of existence for all humanity. History does not support this expectation, by the way, but what this points out is the virus is a perfect mirror for our beliefs. It reflects our vanities and our imperfections, our certainties and our uneasiness. We want it to confirm that which we already know or want to be true. There are lessons to be learned, yes. Lessons about ourselves, our culture, and the world. But history has shown us that if you already think you know what the lesson is, you probably aren't going to learn anything. When it comes to this being some kind of a quest, my understanding is that such a quest requires intention. The intention to leave your old life behind, to cross a threshold and enter into a new life guided by the medicine, as my teachers put it. And this isn't what's happening to my eyes. And I don't think this is necessarily a rite of passage, because those also require intention. The intention to leave one stage of life behind and enter another, and have the community recognize it, like weddings, funerals, graduations, and so on. And I don't think that we of all humanity, possess the collective maturity and social agreement necessary for either of those intentions to be true. We don't have any real collective intentions as a species, nor any real idea of where we are going. We are, to put it bluntly, lost in a hall of mirrors of our own devising, and the reflection can be pretty frightening. I think, personally, that we are currently experiencing what is known as coming off a bender. The booze is gone, the drugs are gone, and we have collectively woken up on the living room floor with a splitting headache, a bad taste in our mouth, surrounded by trash and empties. No one will answer our phone calls except our dealer. and we've got $1 and some change in our pocket. There's nothing in the fridge but a jar of mustard and a piece of pizza so old and hard you could stab somebody with it. The utilities have been turned off, the toilet is clogged, and there is no water to slake the thirst in our throats or our souls. The landlady is banging at the door, wanting all that past due rent that we spent on having a good time. Some of you may know from experience exactly what I'm talking about. You may not like that analogy, but think about it for a second, because for at least 100 years or so, we've collectively been on a bender of consumption, fueled by destruction. The destruction of lives and ecosystems, of cultures and values, so much more. The destruction of lives, the environment is threadbare. All our pretty toys are falling to pieces. Our cultures and values have been sacrificed at the altar of economic growth. We've fouled the air and the water beyond repair, and nobody is answering the prayer hotline. The party really is over, and it's time to recognize it. Now, here's the tempting thing about coming off a bender. The only immediate relief is another hit, another drink, another of whatever it is you are addicted to, which will inevitably lead to another bender and another brutal Sunday morning coming down, as Johnny Cash put it. And the only thing that can break the cycle is to sober up and stay sober. And we are collectively a long, long way from that. And our dealer is tapping at the door because just one more hit, baby. One more fast food meal, one more tank of gas, one more cheap flight to Cancun, and all will be as it was. The pain will go away. It'll cost you double, but let's not worry about that now. In order to quest or be initiated, you have to be sober. You can't do these ceremonies when you're high or enter into a new life stoned or hungover. These are contracts with yourself, with your community, with spirit. And being mentally, emotionally, or spiritually impaired invalidates the contract. Null and void. And it'll come back to bite you if you try. So lovely as the thought is of humanity going through some collective transformation, well, let's talk about that when we sobered up and stayed sober and cleaned up the mess we made. That comes first. But there is an opportunity here for something a little deeper. So I want to return to Robert Fly's words and the rat's way. The rat's way is down low, through the underworld, down in the dark, where all our shadows lie, our addictions and our grief, but also treasure if we care to go deep enough. And in these times of chaos and confusion, when things seem to be falling apart, the best approach is to dive deeper. Not to batter against the walls, lured by false promises of the light. One of the oldest underworld myths recounts the story of the Sumerian queen Inanna and her twin sister Ereshkigal. And it begins with a choice. Inanna, the beloved queen of heaven, chooses to descend in order to attend the funeral rites of the husband of Ereshkigal, who is the terrifying queen of the underworld. Inanna knows that it is the right thing to do, but what she does not know until she begins her descent is that she will be required to pass through 7 gates, at each of which she must relinquish her trappings of power, followed by every last remnant of her clothing. She protests, but ultimately chooses to submit to the stripping so that she may honor the dead and perform the rites of mourning. So when she finally meets her twin sister, having passed through the 7 gates, she's naked and humble. But her reunion with her abandoned and grieving twin sister in the underworld does not go well. Ereshkigal is angry. Inanna is judged, killed, and hung upside down on a meat hook for 3 days. And when she does not return from visiting the underworld, her handmaiden, Ninshubar, goes to Inanna's father gods for help. They refuse. They will not engage with the great below. And only Enki, the compassionate god of wisdom, acts. He creates messengers to travel to the underworld from the dirt beneath his fingernails. When the humble messengers reach Ereshkigal in her underworld realm, they find her in labor. And they respond empathically to her cries. "Oh, oh, my inside," Ereshkigal wails. "Oh, oh, your inside," the messengers mirror back. Their compassion and companionship softens Ereshkigal's grief and rage, and she offers these creatures any boon of their asking. And they request Inanna's corpse and sprinkle it with the water and food of life. She's resurrected, healed, and transformed, born anew from the womb of the underworld, through witnessing the agony, the witnessing of grief, and the agency of compassion. And now initiated, Inanna can never again be innocent of death or place herself above the limits of life. Now, that's just one ancient story of many that underlie and inform cultures. And those stories are not our stories, but we can see ourselves reflected in them. How many of us live the life of Inanna with the royal privileges of water, power, transport, food available on demand, along with endless consumer choices? Our queenly lives are costly to others and the earth. There are descents to be made and death rites to attend so that new ways of living may be birthed. The further we descend, the harder it gets. We get to the first gate, maybe we recycle. And like Inanna, we protest when we have to strip off energy-intensive lifestyles, relinquish our privileged mindsets, and stop placing ourselves above the limits of life. Martin Shaw, a fellow Vision Quest guide and a mythic storyteller, says that we are now in the underworld, and it looks just like this one. And he makes the point that in the underworld, in the darkness, you can't see. We're not talking about physical light. And without sight, what you must do in the darkness is listen. I don't think we've listened enough yet. And I'm not talking about listening to the cacophony of media and pundits and podcasts and politicians. I'm talking about listening to our deep inner voices, to the deep wordless currents underneath the wind and the earth and the sky, to that which is being said in the field among and between all beings. There are wounds to heal. So many wounds, wounds to people and cultures, to the earth, the air and the waters. There are bodies to be made whole again. Colored bodies and queer bodies, women's bodies and men's bodies and children's bodies, poor bodies and rich bodies, young bodies and old bodies, animal bodies and plant bodies. Bodies to be sprinkled with the food and water of life so that they may live again. But in order to do that, we need to be in the underworld long enough, stripped bare and humble, listening until we really hear what's going on, until we know the lay of this new land and where the compass points now. Yes, 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 our old lives and our old ways beckon. And again, the truth is that we have not spent enough time in the underworld. We have not passed through all the gates. And if we cut our underworld journey short, we'll never undergo the transformation that the journey brings. There are no shortcuts. And to imagine this virus will change us is wishful thinking. It is at best an invitation to the funeral. In the depths, there is treasure to be uncovered and brought into the light for the good of the world. And quite simply, we can't do that if we return too soon. We will return in pieces, powerless. And this flies in the face of every demand from our culture. We've been trained to want quick decisions and fast resolutions, to get it done and move on. Fast food, instant gratification, no waiting. Anything to shave a minute, an hour, a day from our travel time to and from anywhere. And now we're being asked to sacrifice lives and health to get the economy back up to speed. I don't think so. It's time to live into the darkness and listen. Not to let anyone push us to go fast, to resolve things and move on. For us to be wary of those who claim they know the way to the light. The way out is down, and we have the choice to dive or not. And so that is where we sit here in this time betwixt and between. Will we continue to die, to go down, to discover what lies in the darkness, uncover the treasure and bring it back? Remains to be seen. I hope we die. Thank you. You know, in closing, I just wanted to say a little bit about treasure. Joseph Campbell wrote that it is by going down into the abyss that we recover the treasures of life. And where you stumble, there lies your treasure. And I've always been a little suspicious when attempts are made to extrapolate from the individual to the collective, because individuals behave differently than groups of people, and particularly large groups of people. And so I can't speak for other continents or other places or other countries, but I think here in America, we've stumbled. And we stumbled in a big way in many areas. And so I think when we look at that, we can see that's where our treasure lies. And that's a conversation that we really, really need to have. And I'm hoping that we can have it as we move forward, but it's up to us to engage others. It's up to us to have that conversation so that maybe this time around, we can extrapolate from the individual to the collective. So thank you for listening, and let's extinguish our chalices together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May love and skill be in our hands. May love and courage fill our hearts. May love and wisdom light our minds. May love flow through us and walk among us. Until we are together again. Take care, be well. May it be so.